a particular interest around them. Good evening and welcome everyone to the first mayoral question and answer session with Mayor Andy Burnham. My name is Jennifer Williams. I'm the Social Affairs Editor at the Manchester Evening News. We've got a packed audience here tonight in Manchester, but we've also got people following on Facebook as well, both on the MEN page and on Andy's page. So welcome to them as well. We are going to be taking questions from the audience here on a range of themes over the next half an hour or so. We're going to be covering all kinds of things, from homelessness to affordable housing to spice to all kinds of things that have come up, including in many cases things that I think formed quite major parts of your campaign. And we are going to be going through from now until about 9 o'clock. And as I say, it's the first it's a rolling series of Q&A sessions like this. You're going to be travelling around Greater Manchester, aren't you?
Yep.
Doing more of these. So with that, over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Jen. I think I'll stand so I can see everybody. Huge thanks to you all for coming tonight to this, as Jen says, the first question time. We're going to do these on a regular basis. So thanks to you for coming and everyone who's tuned in as well. Coming up to 100 days since I was elected as the first Mayor of Greater Manchester, and I just want to thank you all for the warmth and the support that I've had since then. It's been quite incredible, really. I was elected, I know, with votes from people perhaps who wouldn't normally vote Labour, votes from across the political spectrum. Obviously, it was a great thing to get such a mandate, but because of that, I know that I need to be and I will be a mayor for everybody. I've left the point scoring behind in Westminster. It's not why I'm doing this job. I'm in it to make a difference, and I want to work with everybody here, everybody watching, everybody in Greater Manchester to see if we can do that together. Just a few things of what already I've been doing in the first 100 days. Jen said we'd pick up on the themes of the campaign. Young people was a big theme of the campaign. I said I would do something to help them get on in life and make particularly travel more affordable. So working with the bus companies from this September, all 16 to 18 year olds in Greater Manchester will be able to get half price day tickets. So that's quite a big saving for them on today's prices, down from £5 for a day ticket to £2.50. So it's a first step, but I'm still working towards that free bus pass as soon as we can for all 16 to 18 year olds in Greater Manchester. I said that there would be a rewrite of the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, and we are on with that, and people will see more coming out on that soon, particularly to protect more of our green belt, and that is something that I said I would do, and I will do. Homelessness was a major theme of the campaign. I'm sure it will come up this evening. On day one in the job, I created the Mayor's Homelessness Fund. I've made 2 donations so far from my salary. I will carry on doing that every single month for as long as you elect me as your Mayor, 15% of my salary. We've got around £50,000 in it now in terms of individual donations and commitments that people have made. And we've made 3 grants to 3 fantastic local organisations working to support rough sleepers and people who are homeless. More grants will be made tomorrow from the Mayor's Fund. So we're beginning to develop a plan to tackle homelessness. I can say more about that later. We've held a digital summit with people from across the digital and tech sector in Greater Manchester. It caused huge excitement, and the aim we've set is to make Greater Manchester the UK's leading digital city and top 5 in Europe. So that is something that I think is going to really build over the coming weeks and months. And I said I'd do something to promote cycling. Has anybody cycled here this evening? All looking, oh, a few. Oh, yeah, one hand at the back there. We have Mobike. I can't claim full responsibility for that, but obviously I helped bring it through in the early days as mayor. Others worked on that too. But tomorrow, quite a big step forward actually for cycling in Greater Manchester. Tomorrow I'll be announcing Greater Manchester's new Cycling and Walking Commissioner, with the aim of building a high quality, safe, dedicated cycling network across all our 10 boroughs to get more people out of their cars, onto their bikes, making air quality better, improving health, cutting congestion. Really, really pleased to be able to say to you tonight that the person who will be that commissioner is Olympic gold medalist Chris Boardman, who I think is a real coup for Greater Manchester. He's coming in to make a serious difference, and I want him to make a serious difference. We're renowned as the medals factory for cycling. You know, we've got a great record when it comes to elite cycling. Not so good, if we're honest, when it comes to helping everybody, the population, get onto their bikes. So Chris will be doing that alongside promoting walking and better facilities for pedestrians as well. So a big step forward, a big name to help us take that step forward, and I hope that's news that is encouraging for you all this evening. So making a difference hopefully already, but you'll have lots of questions tonight, and I'm here to answer them as openly and as honestly as I can. Want to hear directly from you, hold me to account. I'm sure there'll be things you want to challenge me on that I've done or said in my first 100 days, but actually the positive as well, I want you to give me ideas. I mean, that's as much as important to me as the bit about holding to account, because for me this will work for Greater Manchester, this devolution, if we unlock the power of our people and our communities. Obviously we've been through an incredibly difficult time in the last 3 months, but I know now without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that I am the mayor for the best place and the best people in the world, and in my view there's nothing we can't achieve together. So I look forward very much to doing that with you, but also look forward to your questions this evening, and hope it's a worthwhile event. So thanks for coming, and back to you, Jen.
Thanks, Andy. Just a quick one that I should have mentioned: if everyone puts their phones onto silent, that would be great. We've got hashtag behind us here as well if you do want to tweet through this evening. So the first question we're going to take is from Isabel Frew. Is she in the audience? Hi. Hi. Have you got a mic? Sorry, I think someone will probably bring you a mic over now.
Good evening, and how far forward are you in dealing effectively with the spice epidemic in Manchester?
It's a really important question, and actually for those of us in the the mayoral election campaign, I see Will Patterson here tonight, who was the Green Party candidate and actually was a fantastic candidate in that election. I think it's fair to say, Will maybe want to comment on this as well later, that the events that were unfolding in the city in the early part of this year, particularly around March, April, which in my view Jem was doing a great job of capturing and raising. So it felt a little bit like we were overwhelmed by what was happening, and as a result we need to get a clearer strategy in place to protect people from the harm that's potentially caused. The thing is, spice, people use that word, it was sold as a legal high, and then obviously the bill came through Parliament that banned its sale in that way. What then seems to have happened is the formulation was changing by those who were putting it onto the streets of Manchester, and that then, the product that people thought was weaker, obviously had changed considerably. So spice covers a kind of a spectrum, I would say, of different strengths of product. What can we do? Well, we had a conference, so we brought together a conference a couple of weeks ago where all different players in Greater Manchester came together from the health service, academia, police side, and obviously we've got colleagues from those services here tonight. I think we're beginning to get in place a strategy here. One of the calls is that we should have more immediate information on the strength of the product that's out there on the streets in Greater Manchester, more on-street treatment for people who need an antidote of some kind, and that was a call that was made. But at the end of the day, without giving an overlong answer, we've got to give people hope, haven't we? Hope that there's an alternative to rough sleeping, that we're going to provide shelter, safe shelter for them, and we're going to give them then a way forward towards a home, a job. In the end, I would say that is the best answer to spice. Of course, also, the Chief Constable's here this evening, maybe he would want to comment at some point. We do have to bear down, not on the individuals who are using it, in my view, but on the dealers and the manufacturers, the people who are putting this very harmful product onto our streets. So it's a complicated issue, but we have begun to develop a better answer than the one possibly we had earlier this year.
Are you starting to see any change since, say, where we were in May? Has the picture changed at all?
I don't think we were seeing what we were seeing back when you were writing about it in that early part of the year, Jen. I think there's a better understanding now, isn't there, out there about the potential harm that this product can do. So I don't think it's as bad, but it's still a big problem. And I think the government's drug strategy recently doesn't really answer the issue, and we've got to work at it together. It's not there's no easy solution, is what I would say, but we've got to. The big answer, I think, is give people hope, and that in the end is something that is in a bit of short supply at the moment for too many people who are on the streets. I think the Chief Constable wanted it.
Yeah.
Evening everybody, Ian Hopkins, Chief Constable. Just to reiterate what Andy said around some of the enforcement stuff that we've been doing. So our focus has very much been on those that are dealing it, not those that are using it. They're some of the most vulnerable in our society. So I'm really pleased to say we met with all of the judges across both courts in Manchester. We did presentations to them on the impact. We're very much using community impact statements when we're putting people before the court, and as a result we're seeing people now getting sentences of 4 years, 3.5 years. In particular, there was one individual, Nicholas Dodd, who was given a conditional sentence, and within 3 weeks we'd arrested him with kilos of spice again in his house. He's now serving 3 years, and the Recorder for Manchester was very clear that we won't tolerate this here in our city. So there are a further 29 people that are in the criminal justice process waiting to go before the courts as a result of the combined operation that we've been doing at Manchester City Council.
And related to that question, it's a question from Wesley. I don't know if Wesley's here. Anywhere? Wesley here? There's no hands going up. Well, I'll read this one out, and this is quite similar to quite a few questions that we had for you from a lot of people. When will we see your promises regarding homelessness start to take effect?
It's city centre, but also all over Greater Manchester, because rough sleeping's been rising all over. Just the figures, actually, to show the scale of the problem. Since 2010, I won't kind of dish out all these statistics tonight, but this one's important. Rough sleeping in Greater Manchester has increased by 360%, which is an astonishing increase. And I'm not here, as I said at the beginning, to make party politics, but the reality is taking housing benefit away from 18 to 21-year-olds is not going to make my job any easier, I'm afraid to say. And there were figures out from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation last week that the number of evictions across the country now is running at 1,000 a week. And there's a big increase in what they call no-fault evictions, where private landlords are just evicting people for no reason whatsoever, just because maybe they want to try and get more rent, who knows. So the job's not getting any easier. We had a great event at Salford University on Tuesday, where we got a whole range of people together, particularly those with lived experience who've been on the streets or are still on the streets, with people who are working with them. And the idea is that we're, through our Homelessness Action Network, headed up by Ivan Lewis MP and Councillor Beth Knowles, we're going to develop a strategy with people. So let people, the experts, feed into it, and then I will back it as Mayor, and the fund will be there, the Mayor's Homelessness Fund will be there to back it up as well. So I've said we've made the first grant awards to 3 organisations. There'll be more grants given out tomorrow. We've got offers of buildings, we've got people approaching us saying that they will build some shelters in Greater Manchester. So we are beginning to get offers of real help. When will people see that? Well, hopefully they will begin to see, I wouldn't want to overclaim, but they'll begin to see a difference in months rather than necessarily, certainly not years. The commitment I've given is that we will, well, there's two commitments: end rough sleeping by 2020 and drastically reduce homelessness in the 10-year period. Those are challenging targets, definitely, but in my view it's right to try, and if I got halfway or 3/4 of the way, it's still right to try, and I'm going to put a personal stamp on it. I'm going to drive this as mayor, and it means a lot to me, and I'm confident, because of what we've seen in Greater Manchester and the response of people to what I've said, that we can do it if we pull together. If we're to achieve the goal on homelessness, that means a different housing policy in Greater Manchester, and it means a much greater emphasis, in my view, on truly affordable housing in all 10 of our boroughs. I think it means action against private landlords as well, particularly the most unscrupulous private landlords. So it's challenging, but those are the commitments I've given, Jen, and I hope, well, already there's a difference. So I gave a grant, the Mayor's Homelessness Fund gave a grant to a brilliant organisation called Street Support, maybe known to many of you. They've used it to develop an app that's already in existence for the city centre, but they're beginning now to make it GM-wide, which pulls together all of the support that's out there and available to people, so that we can begin to signpost people to the support they need, but also identify where there's gaps in Greater Manchester in terms of provision. So we're beginning to make a difference, but there's a long way to go.
I think that there's kind of two things, aren't there? There's the rough sleeping that everybody sees, and then there's the kind of far greater numbers of people who are sofa surfing or living in appalling temporary accommodation and so on and so forth. So you talk about tackling the private rented sector. Would you need more powers from government in order to be able to do that? And even under the powers you've got, do you need more money to actually have the officers on the ground to be able to go out and do that work?
Well, yeah, I think this is an area that Parliament has neglected under all governments. The private rented sector in this country is barely, lightly, if at all, regulated, and they get away with far too much, in my view. There are many good landlords, but there are a substantial number of unscrupulous landlords as well. So what can we do about it? I want to bring through what I call a Greater Manchester Good Landlord scheme. So the good landlords can kind of sign up to a basic set of standards, that they won't charge people unfair fees, that they won't evict people without any fault, that they will maintain their home to a decent standard. It's a really terrifying statistic. I think I'm right in saying it. Hope I've not got this statistic wrong, but of all the homes in the private rented sector in Greater Manchester, around 40% are not up to a decent standard, and it's that's not good enough. So I want to have a scheme that kind of gives people clarity about landlords and whether they're they are a good landlord. But then, if there are landlords who won't join our scheme, become more aggressive in going after them and using CPO powers to say, we're not going to let you just be here, rake in the housing benefit, drag down our communities, profit off the back of Greater Manchester without respecting our community. So, I want to send a real message to the magistrates' courts that they should expect to hear from us. If private landlords are causing communities to be dragged down, then we shouldn't accept it, and we should go after them, and we should say, well, to the courts, these people haven't joined our scheme. We don't think it's right that they should be continued to operate and behave in this way.
And is that local councils that are going to be doing that? Because I know that kind of they get these bits and bobs of money through from government that just don't go very far. So they might get like 60 grand here to do like a really targeted bit of work in one bit, and then it runs out and they haven't got any money to do it. I think it's the resource thing, I suppose, I'm getting at, because it's quite intensive work, this, isn't it? To go around, check out the quality of the houses, follow up on tips from the public.
Yeah.
Is the money there to do all of this?
Well, it's tough, isn't it? But I think that's what I want to do, is have a partnership between the Greater Manchester Combined Authority and the individual councils, so that we all work together, because the costs of taking a compulsory purchase order through can be quite high. But I think if we do it together, and if we work with the courts to say, look, we've done the right thing because we gave them a chance, so help us now in identifying and tackling the bad landlords, then that begins to become an approach that will work across Greater Manchester. There are large parts of our boroughs where these landlords, they never visit those communities. They just, as I say, they just rake in the money. They don't maintain the properties to a decent standard. If you look at what happened in West London and Grenfell, the idea that we should let landlords behave in that way, I'm not saying that was a private landlord, but the kind of idea that we should let people stay in unsafe housing without taking action against it is just wrong in my view. We've got to get much tougher with them. And all I'm saying is, in the absence of powers given to me by Parliament, I'll still devise a scheme here in Greater Manchester where we can bear down on them.
I think. Oh yeah, of course.
You're talking about private landlords. I know the council and everybody have had problems in finding these landlords because a lot of them, they live abroad, they have somebody else who's looking after their properties, and when anything comes up, the law that's in place needs the landlord, and they can't find them. So I don't know what can be put in place to make sure that these landlords, when they start buying houses, maybe sign something or make sure they give proper information. I don't know how you're going to do that, or else you're going to have a really hard job sorting that bit out.
You're right.
Thank
That's
you.
a really big part of the problem. As the MP for Lee, when I used to get constituents coming to me saying we've got a real problem with the house next door, it's noisy, people in there are noisy and causing a problem, or it's not maintained and it's starting to damage our property, I would write letters to them on MP's paper, never get a reply. You just write these letters and letters, nothing. And it's just not right, it's not acceptable, is it? You can find where they are, but it takes a bit of work, and that's what Jen is pointing to. It can be resource intensive. But for me, there are parts of Lee I can think of now where you can't turn those communities around unless you start to pick off those private landlords, because they drag the area down and you can't get a grip on things as long as they're there. And I just think we have to have a new approach to allow communities to get control and actually compulsory purchase those properties and bring and encourage housing associations or councils to take them into the council stock or into the social housing stock, so therefore bring the rents down, improve the standards. That's what I think we need to do. And I just think they've got away with too much for far too long. And we spend, I think the figure is £1 billion of money, public money, on housing benefit in Greater Manchester, and a lot of it goes to unscrupulous individuals and companies.
There's a guy at the back here, I think. I think you've just got a mic coming over to you now.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. We seem to be going in two different directions at the same time. We've clearly identified a massive social need. We've got a growing homelessness problem. And yet the market rental strategy that's been adopted by Manchester City Council is based on blowing up a massive real estate asset bubble in the city centre. Now, we need to actually sort of choose between the two. Are we going to allow capital and its returns to take priority over social need and sustainable economic development? We have to make a choice, and it comes down to political leadership. Are you prepared to actually reconsider the market rental strategy?
So before you come in on that, this leads into probably the most popular topic for anybody asking questions. And I can't. Here we go. Let me find it. And I seem to have done something with it. Here it is. No, that's something else. We've had several questions on this topic anyway, asking essentially along the same lines as what you're saying. Like, how do you balance those two things out? There was a lady, and I apologise to wherever you are because I don't know what I've done with your question, but she said I bought a flat in the city centre a year ago, less than a year ago, and already I wouldn't be able to afford to buy it if I was buying now because it's shot up. How are we supposed to balance those two things out?
Yeah. Well, as I said a moment ago, I want to change the emphasis of housing policy in Greater Manchester towards truly affordable housing. And that word affordable is used a lot, isn't it? But what does it mean? For me, it means homes that are affordable to everybody at every income level, so that you have a mix of homes that are there to help everybody get a safe, decent and affordable home. And if we're honest, I don't think we've had that, and we've got a housing crisis. There's a housing crisis all over the country. Now, this isn't all created in Greater Manchester, let's be honest. This, in my view, is principally created in Westminster. Westminster has given us a housing crisis. However, we need to do a better job ourselves of solving it. I'm not going to take over responsibility for council's housing policy. I can't do that in my role, and there's no point in me sitting here tonight and pretending that I can. What I can do is use the powers that I have been given to influence housing policy. And we have a Greater Manchester Housing Fund, which was a £300 million loan fund that the government set up. And the way they set it up was to basically favour those companies that you're talking about, building those flat developments in the city centre. The point being, as that money gets recycled back, we can then redirect it to truly affordable housing schemes, and that's what I intend to do. It's why I've appointed the City Mayor of Salford, Paul Dennett, as the lead for the Combined Authority on these issues. He has consistently been one of the strongest voices on this issue in Greater Manchester, and it's why he's leading up this policy area.
You mentioned there's people
Yep.
more important than me asking questions. There's a gentleman here.
Not to go off the topic completely, but I've been involved in the homeless and rough sleepers initiative in City Centre for over the last 10 years. And one of the things that isn't getting spoken about is the growing number of females that are now sleeping rough in Manchester. And a theme that seems to be recurring every time, and this is going back on a conversation that I spoke with this lady yesterday about, was the fact that they feel safer sleeping in the streets of Manchester than some of the emergency or shelter accommodation available to them. Is there something that we can do about that, and can we get that on the radar?
Well done for raising it, and absolutely, when I talk about ending rough sleeping, I'm talking about not just a roof over people's head, I'm talking about a safe environment for people to be in, a supervised environment. That's what we've got to put into every community in Greater Manchester, because I've heard those stories as well. I've been out with Coffee for Craig, who are out there working on the streets, and I have seen young people, young women, very much at risk on the streets of the city centre. And I hear, was at an event last night on youth homelessness. There is an alarming rise in the number of young people, and some of the people who were at our event the other day brought some young people to the event who are homeless, and we need to hear their voice. So it's a really worrying situation, and the thing about removing housing benefit from 18 to 21-year-olds, who's going to be the biggest losers of that? Care leavers, isn't it? That they are going to be the biggest losers. Kids for whom nobody looks out for them. And it's just, it's heartbreaking, it's wrong. So it isn't just that they're cold, they are at great risk. And I'm sure Ian and other police colleagues would back me up on this. It's a very dangerous environment for young people to be in. And, I went round the city centre when I was first elected. I'm going back out on Monday morning to do that round that we did, because I want to constantly check up on this all the time I'm in this role. I will never give up on this as long as you elect me as your mayor. I will keep working at it until we've put a roof over every head, because in my view we should be able to do that in 2017, and not just a roof, but a safe place for people to be, where they can feel secure and start to regain a sense of themselves. I'll
come back to affordable housing in a second, but you mentioned care leavers. There was I think the latest review of Manchester Social Services was quite critical of the accommodation that was made available to care leavers in the city, and that too many of them are ending up in bed and breakfasts, which obviously then leads on to all kinds of other problems. And the obvious sort of impact of that. Is there anything that Greater Manchester can do when it comes to making sure that at 16 or 17 people don't just disappear out of the system? Because once you're on that path, the chances are that they're going to end up on the streets pretty quickly, and then once they're on the streets, it's really hard to get them back off.
I'm sure there is. I don't want to claim, Jen, I've got all the answers on that, because, as I say, I'd be interested in hearing what people say. I mean, there's a suggestion there that we might actually do more, maybe through the Mayor's Fund or through another route, to improve the security of the places that we've already got. And that might be a good use of the fund to help organisations improve security in those places. One thing our councils are doing, and I think they deserve credit for this, it was Rochdale that first proposed it, but I do believe now nearly all of our 10 councils, if not all of them, have agreed to exempt care leavers from council tax, I think until their early to mid-20s, which is a response to the housing benefit issue. And that will help, but again, it won't be everything. Obviously, that's why I've prioritised the bus pass for young people. at that critical age, 16, 17, send a simple message to every young person in Greater Manchester that they can get somewhere, they can get on in life, they can get to an apprenticeship, they can get to college, they can do something with their life. And that's why that policy is so important to me. At that moment when they need that bit of help, give it to them so they can get themselves on a good path in life.
I think there's a gentleman here with his hand up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't been ignoring you. Oh, sorry.
Evening,
Oh,
Andy, it's
sorry.
me again.
I'll come back to you. I didn't realise.
Sorry, evening, Andy. It's me
Hi,
again.
Christopher.
I'd just like to bring it back to the gentleman behind me's point. It's a simple choice, and that choice is money, cost. But that cost is weighed in lives, and lives on our street. And you've just been saying you've got the mayoral fund, and you've also been saying that you're asking out loud for local community, local businesses, national and solely based here in Manchester, to donate empty buildings. If it comes down to cost, the council has numerous empty buildings that I have squatted personally and supported as many as 70 people from those buildings. And you, the council, have evicted us from every single one containing vulnerable people. Now, you have the assets right now as a council. You've got, on King Street, you've got a massive building called Columbus House. It has multiple toilets, male and female. It's got showers inside. It's absolutely brilliant for what you say you want to do. Now, don't wait for Centre Point till 2020, because we've lost a generation of teenagers, young people who should have their lives. You've got the capability right now. I could walk you around town right now and show you 5 massive empty council buildings. One of them you know about very well, Hume Library. Hume Library. You could open it, you could use it as an overnight hostel out of town. You could also use it as a place to actually put the services that already exist, instead of scattering them around town. Give them a central hub. And you've got the capability of doing that right now as a council in Manchester. You've got empty buildings that you own as a council, that Greater Manchester Pension Fund own as a council. So you wouldn't have to cost any money other than the renovation, the modification, the fire policies, the fire procedures that you'd have to adhere to.
So it's a reasonable point. Can we use empty public sector buildings better to do this kind of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? You could make the change this week. You could do that right now.
I mean, you're going to think I'm avoiding the question.
You are avoiding the questions.
No, I'm not the council. I'm not any of the 10 councils. They've still got to take their own decisions about what they do with their buildings. I can't overrule them. However, let me just answer your point though, Christopher. There is a need urgently for safe places for people to go in the city centre.
Can you let him answer the question?
No, it's a fair question, and I understand how passionately and strongly you feel. I mean, I think a lot of people share the feeling. I was at a meeting last night of all of the organisations working in the city centre, the Coalition of Relief. There's a lot of organisations. Through their work, there are places coming through soon that will provide more. There will provide more places for people to go, and it will. But I mean, to be honest, we've got a bid into the government for £5 million to create what's called a Pathfinder, homeless Pathfinder. They keep promising us, they've never given it to us. So we haven't necessarily got all the money we need at the moment.
You've got the empty buildings already, and I have organisations
Excuse me.
that fund the renovation of those buildings.
So, at the end, I'm sure Andy will be happy to talk more in depth with people if you've got a particular burning issue, but we've got fairly limited time,
Yeah.
so if we could just let him...
I take on board the challenge. If in 6 months to a year's time, and I don't want to make false promises tonight, but if we've not seen places become available that offer some safe respite for those young people, then we won't be making the progress that I want to make. Yeah.
You could save
Well,
lives tonight. You could get people in there.
you will begin to see changes, though, Christopher. You will see changes, and
6 months' time, how many people are going to be dead?
I'm doing my best.
No, you're not.
There's-
You're the head.
Well,
You're the mayor.
There's a
You can
couple.
do more.
There's a couple more
You've
people at
got
the.
buildings.
There's a couple more people at front that'd like to ask related questions, if that's okay. There's a lady here, I think, I think I accidentally overlooked earlier on.
I really think that it's important, and it's a sad matter of a fact that we have so many young people who are homeless, whether they're coming out of care or they're actually leaving their homes and becoming homeless. And maybe that's something we need to look at. Why is this happening? You can say because there's lots of young people out there who's left home for one reason or the other, who's come out of care for one reason or the other, and they're there. and they're open and vulnerable to all kinds of things. And I think that's something we need to be looking at. Why is this happening in the first place? The other thing that I would like to say about the police was talking about, you were talking when you spoke about spice, I wanted to see something then. But when you look at what's happening, you've got people who have see themselves as having a commodity to sell. And we have people who are actually making a choice to buy it. I don't know what it's like, okay? But when you buy something, you obviously think it's going to do something good for you. I don't think you ever think it's going to do something bad for you, you know what I mean? Or it's going to send you in a downward spiral where you can't control yourself, and you don't think that way. So it is important to find out, why do people think they need to buy it in the first place? Because they're making a choice to buy it and to use it, okay? And I think this is really, really important, and that's what we need to be looking at. Why are they doing this? What's the reason? And if we can find the reason, then we can find the solution, and we can, you know, we can all be living much better lives. Because when you see them on the streets and you see what they're going through, it pains me to my heart to see that happening to young people. And I really believe we need to be doing something about it, finding out the reasons why it's happening and finding the solution, because there's always a solution to everything.
I think there's another lady here, I think, who wanted to ask say something related. Oh, sorry. Sorry, well, yeah.
It's a general thing, but particularly relating to homeless women and young women. What are your thoughts on actually? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we could.
That way better.
Yeah, we can't change. We can't change the volume on the mic, I'm afraid.
It's all right,
so
and I've got such a quiet voice.
Right.
I'm sorry. Right. So it's a general issue, but I think particularly relating to homeless women, young women, and whether the Mayor would consider looking at the impact of free sanitary protection for women in Greater Manchester, and particularly homeless women.
That's a specific, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think I'm going to take one more over there on homelessness in a second, but I don't know if you want to just answer that one.
I think that is something. I don't think we've got NHS colleagues in the room tonight, but the NHS are about to second somebody into the combined authority to work on homelessness, and that whole question about health for people on the street is something we really need to focus on. And that's an idea. I can't commit to it, but you know, I know people would support that. Street support are actually making it clear because people donate stuff that sometimes they were saying they don't actually need, and often they have a shortage of products they really do need, and sanitary products are often, for women, are often the product that they need, and they don't have in enough numbers. So there's a bit of an emphasis there in terms of what you know, giving clear messages to the public about what would really help. And that app that I described is partly about doing that. In answer to your point, I mean, it's such a well-made point. I mean, Ian Hopkins, the Chief Constable, said a moment ago, we're not going to go after people taking it. I think he's right to say that, because why would people take it? I would say the main thing that would unify people who are taking it is they don't have hope. They can't see how they're going to get out of the circumstances they're in to a better place. And I think that is the issue. Let's be honest, who wouldn't in those circumstances take something that might take them out of that terrible place just for a bit, so that they're not kind of focusing on that kind of fairly hopeless feeling that they've got. So the answer in the end is that sense of hope that we put in place here. You know, I understand the scepticism that we heard a minute ago, I understand that, but the answer has got to be, and this is the strategy that Ivan Lewis and Beth Knowles are developing, firstly some respite. Secondly, you get more facilities to allow people to recover, so start to rebuild their life. Some people call it housing first. I've got a project in Lee that's very much based on this premise. Give them a flat for a year, and then give them real support to help them rebuild their life. You know, start volunteering, you know, help with possibly an addiction. And then from there, help them really reconnect to society. You know, then work with employers who will take people who've been on the streets. You know, it's a very complex thing if you really want to solve it. But I think in the end it comes down to hope, doesn't it? If people have got hope that they can move out from where they are to somewhere better, then I think you're onto something. At the moment, too many people don't have that.
I think there's one more gentleman over here who's had a hand up for ages, and then I'm going to leave for homelessness questions, right, because we've got some other topics that we need to get to.
Good evening. Alec McFadden, I'm the manager of the Salford Prison Project. I know people can be critical of Andy, but he's the first one in Manchester and Greater Manchester to try to pull everybody together, and I do think we should give him time. I think the answer to the question that you posed about why do people take drugs, when you're dealing with homeless people, when you're dealing with people who've been in and out of prison all their lives are so bad, they escape through drugs. That's why they do it. Yeah. It's nothing magical. They do it for a reason. And what we do in the prison project is we don't solve homelessness. What we do is we prevent it. When people are coming out of prison, we pick them up at the gates, look after them, and we get them accommodation. We've done it in Salford for 10 years successfully. We want to work with Andy across the whole of Greater Manchester. But I'm full of hope here. I really am. And I want to make a suggestion. We've got two of the best football teams, two of the richest football teams, 50 of the richest footballers in the world. I think we should be asking the PFA and the club captains of Manchester City and Manchester United to make donations and to have the same drive that Gary Neville and others did to allow the homeless to go. But do not be critical too long. He hasn't had the job 3 months. You know, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, Andy.
Andy, do you...
Well, thanks, Alec. How
much are you paying him?
Do you think United and City
Enough by the
captains,
sounds of it, yeah.
Do you think they should be giving you some money for this?
Well, obviously, thanks, Alec, for that question. The reason why I've done it is I think in politics for too long there's been a sense of, oh, you do that. And I want to look everyone in this room in the eye, but everyone in Greater Manchester in the eye and say, I'm putting my own hand in my own pocket and I'm doing it. Not because I want any praise about it, but actually I believe we've become too unequal as a society. Pay at the top level, in my view, in all sectors, and I'm talking public sector and private sector, it's not just the private sector, it's become huge, isn't it? And the gap is too big. And I think we if somebody like me doesn't lead by example, where are we going to get change from here? So I want to look those footballers in the eye if ever I meet them and say, well, I'm doing something. Can you do something? And I think most people in Greater Manchester will. I think Gary Neville actually is a real embodiment of Greater Manchester and its values. You know, for me, that, you know, wanting to get on in life and successful and great, because we are a city of innovation and entrepreneurs, brilliant, and everyone does want to get on in life, but they don't, in getting on, walk on by, do they? Nobody does that here either. And that's the spirit. And I'm actually, to be honest, I'm actually quite optimistic. I think that's how people here do think, and they will contribute. They already are contributing to the fund. But I think, you know, it's early days, isn't it? £50,000. I think it could be more if we really work at it and more people contribute. I am certain that we will do this as a Greater Manchester community. We will end rough sleeping by 2020. The more that we get positive, as you say, about it, the more we believe we can do it, we will do it. Well, people can contribute. You know, it's on. We'll keep putting out the link to the Mayor's fund. So if you look on, you know, our social media, you'll see it. Don't forget, of course, there's the Big Change Fund that the City Council, through the Charter, already have. But it's really important for me just to explain the difference between the two, because there is a difference between the two. Yeah. The Big Change is about individual help for people. So it might be sanitary products, for instance, or toothpaste, or I don't know, bus fare, or you know, it could be anything like that. The fund that I've set up is more for organisations. We've got some brilliant organisations doing a lot of great work. They just need more money to do more, to fill in the gaps that we've been talking about. So the Big Change does the individual help, the Mayor's Fund helps the organisations, and between the two of them, I think we begin to get a strategy. And actually, although it's difficult to say this, it's better that people contribute to either of those funds than it is probably to give directly to people on the street. Because actually, if we get the help targeted through those funds, we're more likely to develop a sustainable long-term strategy that will deal with the problem.
I'll try and come back to homelessness again if at the end if we have time, although I suspect we might not. I could talk about that all night.
Yeah, so could I.
Yeah. This is a related question from somebody I think that isn't here. She's called Jane Aarons. I don't think she's been able to make it, but her question kind of links in quite well. What steps will you take to ensure mental health care is properly funded? Following recent information across Greater Manchester, it's not funded correctly. And we also had a couple of other related questions on this. Ken Kendall asking, how it is that CCGs are given a certain amount of money by government to spend on mental health and then don't always do so.
Yeah.
How do you hold them accountable? And Brian Blair's talking specifically about mental health services for young people, which I know has already come up.
Yeah.
How are you going to improve mental health services to 18 to 25-year-olds? That was something that was quite specific in your campaign, wasn't it?
It was. And I'd be keen to open this up if people want to contribute on this particular issue, because you were there, Jen, at some of those meetings. It came up and up and up at practically every event that I did during the mayoral campaign. And why did it keep on? And Will back me up on it. It came up everywhere, didn't it, Will? Why? Because let's be honest, mental health services in Greater Manchester, and particularly Manchester, have been nowhere near good enough for quite some time. And there's been a growing gap between the need that we have and the actual provision. And that has got, as we've got more and more into the 21st century, that gap has got bigger rather than smaller. And it's because modern living, this is my take on it, obviously I'm former health secretary, my take on it is, it's the nature of 21st century living. It's becoming more stressful and more insecure. And there are lots of people in our city region living quite a precarious existence, which is damaging their mental health and well-being. Not being certain that they can feed the kids from one week to the next. That eats away at people's sense of well-being, doesn't it? And this is getting worse and worse and worse. So I wouldn't, again, want to claim that it's all sorted, but to his great credit, day one in the job, John Rouse, who is the head of the Greater Manchester NHS and Social Care devolved partnership, he said to me, first meeting, we're going to do something on mental health. We recognise what you were saying in the campaign, and the strategy that he's been developing was published today, actually, or yesterday, I think it was, where they found an extra £134 million to go into mental health in Greater Manchester, with a commitment that all children who need mental health support will get it. The biggest part of that 134 million is aimed at children's mental health in Greater Manchester. It's not going to solve everything, don't get me wrong, but it is the first sign of a real correction in our system to put more resource into the mental health care system.
I think you mentioned just after you won the mayoral election that one of your ideas was to look at social prescription for mental health. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, and I didn't really know what it was, the idea that GPs directly give somebody a prescription for something which isn't necessarily antidepressants. Yeah. It's something that can help them in a kind of more holistic and less medical way, where they perhaps go out and volunteer, or it's a prescription for exercise, or have you managed to get any further with that? Are you looking at doing that?
Yeah, we are, and I think it is what the NHS needs to do to make the change from a 20th century system to a 21st. I love the NHS no more than any, everybody loves it. I'm passionate about it. But if we're honest about it, it's been a treatment service for its first 70 years, where its default answer when someone turns up at the GP needing help is medication. The prescription is the answer. So far too many people are on prescription medicines than need to be. Antidepressants given out as the first answer, in my view, often incorrectly. Social prescribing is giving people as a first answer alternatives to medication, exercise referral, counselling, dietary advice, debt advice, housing. If you had instant support available as instant as a prescription that was of a different nature, I think you begin to help people to break the cycle that they're in and not become dependent on prescription medicine. And I think in the end, that's the first step in a really good mental health policy, to have that approach to social prescribing.
There's a couple of people with their hands up. I think you wanted to talk before, so I'll go to you first.
Hi, I'm actually a GP based in Manchester. I've been a GP in inner city Manchester for about 12 years. And before, when we were talking about homelessness, what this lady said about prevention, and I think looking at mental health as one of the reasons why some people may end up on the streets is definitely something that needs to be addressed. That's point one. Point two is, I think we need to be a little bit careful by saying the first thing that a GP will do is hand out medication. A lot of the times people lack motivation to engage with some of the social prescription that you're talking about, so the actual medication will help them become more motivated and engage in some of the social prescription side of it. over the past 12 years, I've been a GP for 12 years, and I have seen mental health services decline significantly. And it's simple things like accessing, counselling or CBT. To get high intensity CBT, the waiting list is almost 12 months. At the local hospital to see a consultant, the locum consultants change on a regular basis, so there's no continuity of care. And I think these are the sort of issues that need to be looked at, because until they are, we're not going to see a change. And I've sat at numerous CCG meetings where they've said, we're going to put this strategy in place and this and so on, but nothing seems to be happening. So I'm really hoping that you're going to bring about a change. And in terms of the social prescription, a lot of the people that are on antidepressants and struggling with mental health are also struggling financially to make ends meet. They can't necessarily get to, the exercise classes or get to the counselling classes. And as hospitals are being closed down, North Manchester's being, going to become a lot less services. They will struggle to get to other hospitals, and it's things like this that need to be looked at. There's no community centres, and there's no sense of they can go somewhere and get some advice about their finances locally. A lot of people don't have time to go, and do exercises or go to, because they're trying to make ends meet. And I think these are some of the issues that we seriously need to start addressing.
Well, thank you, yeah. I think you're absolutely right to pull me up, because probably I was oversimplifying. No, and I wanted to just explain it in a simple way to people, but I wasn't
I probably didn't explain it that well.
No, and I didn't want to be blaming GPs. That's not my intention. In fact, the regime that GPs have been asked to operate in, 10-minute slots, consultations, doesn't allow you really to get underneath the challenges that people are facing.
A lot of the underlying issues are social issues that need to be
Correct, and that's the thing, isn't it? People's physical health suffers because they have a social blockage in their life in some way. Their housing's not good enough. They're, maybe having a problem in their relationship, or domestic violence, or mental health, whatever it might be. And this is just about saying, let's take more of a whole person approach to this. Work with the voluntary sector, give them. There are great organisations in the voluntary sector in Greater Manchester. As we know, Bernie runs one of them, Talbot House. I actually want a different relationship with the voluntary sector too. This is going to work, devolution, if we do it together, like I was talking about homelessness before. Treat the community and people as equal partners in this. Don't think the politicians and the public services have all the answers and should pull all the levers and tell everybody how it's going to work. I would like, as Mayor, to encourage a new approach where we give long-term funding to voluntary sector organisations so that they can stop operating hand to mouth, week to week, but can actually engage more volunteers, can contribute more to the community and provide some of those social prescription services that we need.
For us as doctors to navigate those services.
Oh yeah.
There are so many of them. It's almost a minefield.
And that's the idea. That's what we want to develop. So for the GP, on your screen in the consulting room, you would have the things available. Where is the bereavement counselling that this person needs to go to? It's here and it's happening tomorrow and it's this place. Create a system through the voluntary sector as partners to provide those options and those alternatives for people on a local level. But work with us. No, what I'd say is don't just hold me to it. Get involved and help us build it, because that's how we're going to make devolution work.
There's a gentleman's hand up for ages in the back here.
I'm Anthony Mason from the chair from Sickle Cell Care Manchester. My question covers just 2 brief points. First point, in terms of, you mentioned mental health. I stand in the voluntary organisation capacity, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But please, I'd like for you not to decouple mental health from physical health. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
It's a holistic well-being approach, because a lot of people, many people from many different capacities of voluntary organisations deal with people who have physical challenges, but also have mental issues, depression, anxiety, and such forth. So please, not to decouple that. I know you're addressing the adult aspect and young people, but in terms of that, that's very key. You mentioned something again in terms of equity, in terms of the CCGs and such forth. And as third sector organisation, I speak from the capacity of ensuring, and I'm glad that you mentioned the point of long-term sustainable funding and capacity building for the third sector voluntary organisations that are doing sterling work in our community. But what happens is that it seems to be expunged into the mainstream. It then reconfigurates from what it was into the mainstream, and the voluntary sectors are left having to go for smaller grants that don't necessarily meet the need of what they want to be doing.
Yeah.
And again, I speak from the last point is to look at the diversity in terms of a struggling organisation, in terms of the diversity of the BME community, who seem not to be getting a bite of the cherry in the sense of a small organisation trying to punch at the weight that they ought to be, for the simple reason sickle cell, for example, is the most commonly inherited blood disorder in the world, yet we don't get funding like cystic fibrosis, which is less prevalent.
Yeah, but I just 2 quick replies to what you said. I've long argued for what I call whole person care. So see physical, mental and social needs together. Don't try and break people down into the public service silos, or well, this bit will deal with your physical needs and this bit with your mental needs. It doesn't work, does it? People get passed from pillar to post, they tell the same stories to everyone who comes through the door. You've got to have a new approach that is about starting with the person and then make the services work for that person and their needs. And the great opportunity we've got at Greater Manchester is to break down those silos that stop that. And it's one of the great things that attracted me to this job, to be honest with you. Link health with housing, make that work a bit better. Health with education for kids with complex needs, make that work better. Whole child, whole person approach. And I honestly believe you'll only achieve it if you set out on the basis of an entirely new relationship with the voluntary sector, where you trust them as equal partners in this, and you don't dictate to them, and you don't pull the rug under them, as you're saying. Greater Manchester just signed a partnership memorandum between the NHS and the voluntary sector. It's just the beginnings of a better relationship, hopefully. But I, take on board completely the points that you made.
There's a lady just here in the second row.
Hi, my name's Anna Callahan. I manage the domestic abuse services at a relationships charity in Manchester called TLC, Talk, Listen, Change. Just wanted to say thank you for recognising the voluntary service, and to say we would welcome working with you and invite you down. We have a holistic approach to offering relationship advice, and in terms of, obviously, we've got our domestic abuse services, including a perpetrator program, so domestic violence perpetrator program that we've delivered since 2008. So absolutely, we would love to work with you and invite you to come and see kind of what we do in terms of counselling, parenting, support, mediation. Those services are available in Greater Manchester, and we would love to work with you in terms of helping you to understand what is happening in terms of early intervention, and for us to know how we can support you in that. So
it's a great offer.
Invite, open
invite.
invite.
Domestic violence is a classic example of where the NHS and the police maybe can do more. And to be fair, Tony Lloyd, the interim mayor, did work in this area as Police and Crime Commissioner, working with the Chief Constable and others. But there is clearly more we can do. And my point is, the more long-term security you give to the voluntary sector, the more you will get back from the voluntary sector. Don't make them constantly chase project funding. Help them with core funding, not always project funding. And that, I think, is the way to go. And in fact, I'll go even further and say it's the only way to go. In an era when we're all going to have tough budgets, you've got to maximise the contribution from everybody. And if you're going to get a big contribution to the voluntary sector, then give them security. And I know Bernie, you've taught me well, Bernie, is all I say.
Yeah, can I come in?
Yeah, I'm going to take 2 more questions on mental health, because we've still got a few more to go, but you can.
Sustain, I don't usually need a mic, where you go. Sustainable income, right. Our service, Talbot House, is a user-led organisation for the parents of children and adults with severe learning disabilities, could have an added physical disability, and the parents could get mentally ill with breaking point and all that. It's user-led, and my staff are all parents, my volunteers are all parents, who do a day's work with the kids before they come out to work at my service. But we get a little contract, 6 months, 12 months. Well, there's no security there. And we cover everything, as you know, and I've versed you well.
Yeah,
yeah, and we've been established 40 years this year, so we're getting something right. But I need these people want to work, they want to come out and work, but if you only get a 6-month contract and you're begging for a bit here and a bit there, and it's really difficult when you've got an invisible diagnosis, who's going to support a parent carer, you know what I mean? If you can show them heart problems and all that, you can get the money. I have a couple of the heart problems after tonight. But yeah, so that's what we need, just sustainable funding, and we can carry on then with the good work of prevention in every single way.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman just over here. I like that this has moved on kind of into voluntary sector stuff, because this was also something that was raised in a lot of questions, and I didn't know if I'd have time to get to them, but it's kind of come up anyway. Yeah. I think there's a guy here.
My name's Graham Gordon, and I started a not-for-profit organisation called Fit Limited. My background, you can hear from my accent, it's actually from the south. My background's in the south, but my background is actually working with socially excluded people, so I want to reinforce what's been said. And I've worked with homelessness people, particularly people who've been in prison, and other particular groups. And what I've found, one thing I want to highlight, what I found working in Greater Manchester is a lot of people have come on our employability courses, have got huge skills, but they've been overlooked, and they haven't been encouraged to actually work up those skills and improve their lives. And there's a lot more that we can be doing. And one final thing, this is my GP, and I can assure you that she never gives out medication unless you really need it.
And I think the next time you ring for an appointment, you'll be straight in.
Just going to take one from Will over here, who's previously Andy's foe from the Mail campaign, formerly the Green candidate.
Not at all. He was an outstanding candidate. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Hi Andy, and thanks Jen. I'm going to sort of take the party political hat off for this one, and just because this is an issue that's core to me, as my dad's a mental health patient, suffers from clinical depression and anxiety. So you mentioned before about how modern life and uncertainty is creating mental health conditions. I want to flip that around really and talk about how people with pre-existing mental health conditions cope in the workplace and the access they have to safe and secure jobs as well, because my dad was a Remploy worker for 7 years between 2004 and 2011. And so the dismantling of Remploy was a disaster for him and a disaster for all the people he worked with. You had people there. He used to tell me a story. He worked in the back office of this woman on the shop floor who came into him and said, "Barry, do you like what I've done with my hair?" And he said, "Well, what have you done with it?" She said, "I've washed it." This was a big thing for her, seriously. It was that was the level of how much she could take care for herself. And obviously when they shut the Remploy factories, people like that were thrown into these work placement programs like Interwork, which then in turn dumped them on 0-hour contracts. Now you had people with depression, anxiety, all kinds of conditions, sat there waiting for the phone to ring. And how unfair is that? Now obviously your powers don't include turning the clock back, and they don't include restoring Remploy, but what can we do around jobs to make sure that people with mental health conditions do have a safe space to work in, a sheltered space, and as secure employment? What programmes can we look at?
Is there scope for something along the lines of Remploy that Greater Manchester could do itself that follows the same kind of principles?
I think possibly. I mean, I don't think that was our finest hour as a government, the way that was all handled. I would definitely say that. Is there scope to do something better? Possibly. It goes back to the other question as well. I think the thing that we could do a lot more if we had the devolution of the DWP budget. I'm absolutely certain, I feel very passionately about this, if we had that money here in Greater Manchester and we didn't have the tick box top-down sanctions based approach of the DWP, but we spent that money linking it with the health money and the housing money, and we could do a lot better job to support people into employment, in my view, than they do. But what could we do in the short term? Well, I think it's possibly working with employers, good employers who are prepared to work, and many will, to provide that kind of support. And it's quite a shocking statistic, actually, that adults with learning disabilities, around 6% work in Greater Manchester. That is nowhere near what it should be, because many more can work with support. And I'm thinking too of adults with autism. That is another hidden scandal that we've not actually dealt with over many years. And if they had got appropriate support, many more could be in work too. So it goes beyond mental health problems. It's a really we've all failed, I would say, and it's something we need to really put right. it's possibly a national issue, but again, let's see what we can do at local level.
You mentioned the DWP budget. How are discussions with government going on that? Because they don't.
How are discussions going with government generally? I don't know if transport's going to come up at some point.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much time we've actually got left. I think DWP are not necessarily the easiest people to deal with at any point by anyone. Are you getting anywhere with that in terms of asking them for those powers?
We are making a little bit of progress. So Councillor Sean Anstey, leader of Trafford Council, leads for Greater Manchester Combined Authority on skills. And there has been an element of the work programme devolved to Greater Manchester in partnership with the DWP. So they're kind of dipping their toe, is the way I'll put it. And there is a work and health programme in development in Greater Manchester that could actually begin, Will, to deal with some of the issues that you are talking about, alongside the better services for people with mental health problems that we've been talking about. So the beginnings, Jenna, I would say, of a solution, but early days.
Okay, I'm going to jump. I'm really sorry. I'm going to try and take a question on a completely different topic, because one thing we've not really touched on yet is crime, and you're obviously in charge of the whole crime fire side of things, which we've not talked about at all. We don't have an awful lot of time left, but there was a lady called Pauline Sargent. I'm not sure if she's. Oh, is it you? Okay. You had a question about crime.
Yes. Hello again.
Hi,
I
Pauline.
didn't give my name. My name is Pauline Sargent, and I'm here on behalf of Mothers Against Violence. And we've been going for nearly 19 years. I don't know whether people in this room knows about Mothers Against Violence.
Yeah.
So we have been trying to work with other people, especially with what's been happening, those people who are suffering from traumatic stress and everything. But my question really was to find out whether or not you are thinking of got any strategy or any ideas of how we can all work together to prevent the increase of guns, knives, and other crimes within our communities.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's obviously a big topic, isn't it?
It's a massive topic, and Pauline, you've obviously got good judgment, because you've sat next to the Deputy Mayor for policing and crime, Beverly Hughes, and she'll give you all the real answers. There's the one that I don't give you in a minute. But no, it's a massive issue, and maybe the Chief Constable will want to contribute on this issue as well, because we have a real problem, not just here, but all over the country, with knife crime, with a whole range of gang-related crime that it keeps coming. We struggle to break it, don't we? And we get progress, and then it goes back again. I think in the end, I mean, we could point to specific things around, penalties and police officers on the street. I think it does in the end come down to young people offering more hope to young people at school, more hope at 16 that they can make a success of their lives. Too many young people in Greater Manchester lose their way at school and don't see a future for themselves when they leave at 16. And I could give lots of other answers, but I think in the end that is the biggest problem. And I think we need to have a big change with regard to young people who are not on the university route. I want them to have the same clarity about the future as university students get, which is what I keep describing as a UCAS-style system for apprenticeships, so that at 13, 14, they can go online and they can see all the opportunities in Greater Manchester that they could go to, and if they know they've got that free bus pass, they know then they can get to those opportunities, and then perhaps feel that there is something there for them in life. And at the moment, too many, and I met many of them in my campaign, don't have that sense that society is going to help them get on, and therefore they turn away to crime, to gangs, to other forms of identity and belonging. And until we crack that, I don't think we will crack the problem.
I think a lot of these things that we're talking about should be at least mentioned in school, because we don't give a lot of credit is not given to children that they know what's going on. And I think they should be informed about all the things around us. And I think a lot of youngsters fail, especially from the BME, because the teachers do not value them and they put them down. And I've witnessed this because I'm a school governor, and I see them saying, oh, you know, you'll play football, you go into games, you go into this. Yeah. So the opportunities are not offered, and they get fed up. And, you know, there's lots of things that need changing, because I think people who are policymakers, especially teachers, they should be taught, because each, you know, it's a diverse country and people have got different ways of doing things. Yeah. And I've witnessed children being told off by the teachers, and they look away. These are black boys or black girls, and they look away, and the teachers get very angry.
Well, I agree with you completely.
And say, you've been disrespectful. Now, what they don't know is, at home, if your parents telling you off and you stare them down, boy, you're in for some trouble. So, you know, all they need to do is to have a little bit of information of each culture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you speak so well and passionately about it. And I don't know whether Bev Hughes wants to jump in as
Bev
well.
does want to jump in,
if I could just say one quick thing in response to what you're saying. The problem is schools, and this has got worse after Michael Gove got involved, increasingly have become exam factories. And they are increasingly focused on the academic subjects, and they are not focused enough on the young people who are not going to university. The big call I got from young people through the campaign was a curriculum for life. Help us with life and the challenges out there. And they feel school is really failing them in that right now, and I think they're right about that.
Beth, yeah.
Well, just to add to what Andy and Pauline said, and just to say a bit about the approach we take, and you've hit it on the head, really, Pauline, and it wasn't something that actually we started, but Tony Lloyd, as Police and Crime Commissioner before us, was really convinced that the only real way to support young people who are vulnerable of getting into antisocial behaviour and crime is to draw on all the contributions of everybody who can help. And so it's very much a partnership approach. The police themselves can enforce the law, and they do, but actually diverting young people from getting into trouble, supporting those who need help when they do need help, needs everybody. It needs organisations like Pauline's, and we work with them, and yours, in fact. It was great to hear about your organisation. But also communities and families themselves. There are, in fact, some good schools, Pauline, where staff are really committed to working with us right across the board, but it's that strong partnership approach, along with the police, including the communities and the community groups, that's the only thing that's actually going to work here.
I think there's a lady over here. Yes.
Hi, I just want to respond to this. I'm actually a teacher and have been for 23 years. Just want to say all teachers aren't in the same bucket, okay? And
like GPs, I'm
yeah,
sure we
exactly. And we will get them back. But for me, it's been quite interesting moving back to the north of England to see really multi-agency working is where, in terms of London, I thought work that we did with London Challenge, etc., was amazing. I don't see that here, and what I've seen actually in Manchester has been the decline in youth services. And the things that we used to do in London was quite often working with the youth services and talking and having that discussion so that it was coming back in especially with the extended schools. Now that is limited at the moment, and we talked about CAM services earlier and CBT. Those referrals for young people are very much needed, so I'm really pleased to hear about the 134 million that is going to be available. But we've got a whole group of students whose curriculum, some of them, is not really what they would like. And so I remember back in the day where I was able to do some work experience, some, you know, the curriculum was designed for individual needs. It is going to be more challenging to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a couple from over here, but you have talked previously about a Greater Manchester Challenge, haven't you, when it comes to schools?
Yeah.
Is that something that where's that got up to so far?
Well, if I'm honest, not very far, because the government hasn't put schools policy in the devolved settlement. So, you know, there's a kind of a belief that schools have got to be completely outside of the relationship with other public services, that they should be separate, independent academies and free. It's wrong in my view. You know, we should have a more collaborative approach across Greater Manchester. And your point is, I agree with you very strongly. And again, I wasn't oversimplifying. I know there are brilliant teachers out there. What you don't have is a career service and a youth service to fall back on anymore, because it's gone. And what we've got to try and do is recreate something to offer an alternative. So I want to create this system. I talked about the UCAS system for apprenticeships. I want work experience on there. I want work shadowing on there. I want internships that, let's say, middle class kids can kind of get through their network. So I want those to be open to everybody. You know, I want to build a kind of digital system for young people in Greater Manchester that allows them to see opportunity and then access those opportunities. It won't be done overnight, but that's where I want to go, to give that kind of alternative focus for young people who are not being well served by the education system.
I think it was good. It's just a couple of people with their hands up here. If you could be relatively brief, and then we're gonna wrap up. The lady here.
So my name's Cara. I'm 14. I'm from Reclaim. We've already met. So it's nice to see you again. And I've got 2 really quick questions. Is that right? So my first one is, what avenues are you opening up for working class people to take top positions in society and attend top universities?
Yeah, that's a quick question.
Really,
and then a really quick answer.
And the next one,
Yeah.
what would you put into place to improve social mobility for working class young people?
Yeah.
That's something we're quite passionate about as well.
You know, and Reclaim is an amazing organisation. For those who don't know, it's all about helping young people from working class backgrounds to get on and achieve. And I am genuinely passionate, as you know, about that whole initiative. It's what I was just saying a moment ago. You know, how can we open up the opportunities that are out there to everybody on a fair basis and give them help to access those opportunities? That is what I think we've got to do. The problem is, at the moment, too much of it is closed off, isn't it? It's people who've got networks and connections who can access those opportunities, and it kind of perpetuates it within a certain kind of social network, and it doesn't open it up to those who perhaps don't have parents who are connected in that world. The free bus pass is part of it. There's a limit to what I can do, obviously, but the aim is to create a support system in Greater Manchester that gives hope to every young person, that they can get from where they are in their estate, wherever that might be, to an opportunity somewhere else in Greater Manchester. That is what I'm trying to do, so that at school, at 13, at 14, they can see there is something there for them that they can aim for, because too many kids in Greater Manchester don't have something to aim for, and that explains why they end up in a situation where they're involved in gangs, knives, guns, whatever that might be. So we're calling it an opportunity pass, to be specific. So what I want to create is a system in Greater Manchester where apprenticeships, work experience, work shadowing, internships are all on there and openly and publicly available, that specify what those employers want in terms of experience and grades at school, and then young people can apply for them in the same way they can apply for university, and that they're not kind of dished out behind closed doors. And then the free bus pass is the ability for people to get to those opportunities. That is what we're trying to do, an Oyster-style system that is about young people, young people's opportunity and citizenship.
Do you need employers to kind of ideally sign up to that as that half of things?
Absolutely, that's what we'll need them to do, Jen. So we'll be knocking on the door of the Manchester Evening News to give opportunities for. But it's
we always need.
I know
more help.
Yeah.
We need as much help as we can.
Well, I'll be asking all my colleagues, all my MP colleagues, to say put their opportunities on there. You know, all councillors hopefully, all public bodies should put. You know, we should have more mentoring going on across Greater Manchester for working class kids. You know, give them a chance to go and be in those worlds. Not seeking great praise myself, but I do a lot of work shadowing. Somebody's here who's work shadowed me just this week because I want them to taste that world. They never open the post if they come and work for me. They never make the tea. Well, they make me the odd brew, but the point is, I say taste that world. Come and see it. Stand next to me. Watch it. That is what I would want every public servant in the senior level at Greater Manchester to be doing for working class kids in Greater Manchester. That's what we should be doing.
Quickly,
Very sorry. It's just a quick question. In reality, it's been an amazing event, and I thank you all for coming. But it's about getting us as active citizens, because I know you guys are already doing your day-to-day jobs and doing that amazing thing on a day-to-day basis, helping young people like myself, and I really, really am grateful for that. But how do you get other people within our society to be active citizens and helping you do the work you do? Because like, you're doing an amazing job, I have to say, but we could help. And it's about giving us the opportunity to.
Yeah.
Like, you must understand that.
I do. Honestly, I really do. I don't think I can achieve what I want to achieve as mayor, to answer your question, without unlocking the contribution of everyone in this room, everyone in Greater Manchester who wants to be involved in achieving some of the things that we're talking about tonight. You know, the days are gone where public money is going to pay for it all. Genuinely, they are. We're all going to have to do more for each other. I want more young people to perhaps help combat loneliness amongst older people and promote a bit of that. Or I want more people to act as mentors for young people and help them, you know, for those who perhaps don't have parents with connections, maybe other people who are retired could provide that. How can we link people together? And to take your point, Samuel, on citizenship, you know, if young people do something good, maybe they could put points on that card that I'm talking about, that digital card, so that they can access more stuff for free, more opportunity to help them get on in life. You know, I want to build a world-class support system for young people in Greater Manchester. I meant what I said in the campaign about them being at the heart of everything I'm trying to do. We can't rise to the challenge of Brexit unless we have a big change to the way we look after our young people. And here's a specific. When it comes to the NHS, we're hearing in the news this week that there are going to be vacancies in the NHS, and there already are actually, and we're spending a lot of money on private staffing agencies. I want to work with the NHS here in Greater Manchester to say, if a young person graduates in a nursing or midwifery or other clinical qualification from a Greater Manchester university and they commit to our NHS here for 5 years, we should help pay off their tuition fees. That is what these are the kind of things. Create new pathways for young people into the professions in Greater Manchester and start to adopt new thinking to make it happen.
Thank you so much.
I think we've got just enough time for Andy to say a final few words. I just wanted to thank you all for being so massively engaged. It's been really, really good. And yeah, over to you.
And not for the young ones helping the older ones. What about the older people? Because a lot of older people are just thrown to the side. And we've got a lot of skills. We can be role models for certain people.
I think you already are.
You already definitely already. There was a gentleman there. I know just because I know you'd had your hand up for a long time. And I don't want to. But then I'll wrap up. Thanks, John.
Some responsibility as well for failing some of the children today.
This is on.
The Evening News have touched on it so many times.
We have touched on it, yeah. It's social services in Manchester are still not out of there inadequate, are they? I think the only point I would make is that it's really specifically not Andy's remit. This is Manchester Council, but I don't know whether you would want to add anything.
I know the new chief executive has it absolutely at the top of her.
Is that Paul Marshall by any chance?
It's Joanne Roney is the new chief exec, and it's at absolutely the top of her agenda. But yeah, Jen is technically right, but there is a piece of work underway actually about how we can improve standards across all children's services in Greater Manchester and actually get some common basic standards that all of them should apply, because it does vary, if we're honest, from one place to another. It's not the right answer always to say it's cuts, but they all are dealing with quite difficult financial cuts. But that said, we can do a better job. And there's no complacency, I can assure you. There is work underway to look at children's services over all of Greater Manchester, and as I say, make them better and apply some common standards. And actually, one thing I've asked from my own position, all parts of GM to do, is look at school readiness. Let's have more kids arriving at school who are ready to learn and succeed at school, because it's not right that in parts of Greater Manchester 7 out of 10 kids arrive at school are not ready to learn. You know, they've not got the basic language skills, social skills. So yeah, those are big issues, and I wish I could do more justice to them in the time we've got, but thanks for raising them.
Thanks.
In some ways, thanks Jen, thank you. In some ways it's a good question to end on, really, because I don't want to give the impression that I've got it all sorted. I know all the answers, got it all sorted. I'm not here to say that to anybody tonight. You know, it is relatively early days, but I can tell you something that I know I am in the right job. I personally feel, I feel that, I do. I mean it, Bernie, honestly. I know you're cynical about, you know, but politicians and I do feel that, honestly. Good, I'm glad. That's a hard, that's...
In that case, you'll do a better job because you seem to love it.
I do, and I'm well supported. I've got brilliant people working with me. Bev here tonight, and I've got, you know, a team of people at the Combined Authority, the leaders, Greater Manchester, many of whom who are here this evening, too many to mention by name. You know, what I felt is, in Westminster, when you walk into a government department, you immediately don't feel that the whole place is with you, if I can put it that way. When I walked in on the first day, Bev nodding there and on you, because you and I have been there. When I walked in on the first day to Churchgate House on Oxford Street, it is, I kind of felt that the place was ready and wanted to make it work, and you know there was a kind of great spirit in there, and I still feel it now. And after everything we went through as a community, a couple of weeks later, has only really kind of strengthened that sense that, you know, this is an incredible place, isn't it, with incredible people and values.
Yeah. And
it just reinforces the feeling in me, how can we not succeed really when we've got communities with that strength within them, and people who are prepared to give of themselves to succeed. You know, I'm really fond of kind of drawing on the history of Greater Manchester in this role, because I think it's important. You know, the home of the suffragettes, the place where the trade unions were founded, the place where, if you go to Lincoln Square, why have we got a statue of Abraham Lincoln in Manchester? Because the working people of Manchester refused to handle slave pit cotton. You know, always through our history, always, we have kind of come together, stood together, and worked to support those who have less than us. That has been our history, and it's definitely going to be our future as well. You know, I have been in that Westminster world for 16 years, and this explains why I feel I'm in the right job. I became increasingly certain that it wasn't going to answer the concerns that people have, many of which we've discussed in this room tonight. And I could see politics leaving people cold. You know, that kind of Westminster, London-centric approach to life it's more and more left people feeling that politics isn't working. And we're living through a crisis of trust in politics, aren't we? You know, everybody feels that all over the world, and it explains some of the turbulence that we've got in politics at the moment. So what's the answer? The answer, it seems to me, is go back to what you know and build from the beginning and the bottom up, and involve people in a different way as partners in what you are trying to do. So I'll just give you these few examples. Homelessness. We had a great discussion just tonight on that. Well, in that room in Salford University this week, I was saying to people who work with people who are homeless, write the plan for me. I'm not going to write it with Bev and say, here's the plan, get on and implement it. You write it, you tell us what we need to do. But if we can agree it all together, I will then back it and I'll support it. And then it's everyone's plan, and we can all kind of feel more confidence in it going forward. Or take digital. We had all the experts in the room, all the companies working in it, in the private and in the voluntary and public sector. Again, you write the plan and I'll back it as mayor. We'll put the weight of the Combined Authority behind it. Young people, I'm going to set up a youth combined authority, and I want young people to design this opportunity pass system that I was describing a moment ago, because you know what you need better than I know what you need. And again, put young people in the driving seat, give them some hope that this can work for them. The whole point of doing events like this is to kind of see if we can change the way politics is done in this country. You know, put people more in control, trust the voluntary sector as equal partners, and start to write a new story for ourselves in Greater Manchester. And I do confidently predict that if we do this together, more social change for the better will come in England and Britain in the next 10 years by people taking inspiration from what we're doing as Greater Manchester rather than direction in the old way from Westminster. People will come here and say, look at what they're doing on homelessness. It is possible to end rough sleeping, it turns out, if people all work together. And then other places might start doing it and saying, well, actually, we are going to do what they're doing. And actually, if you do support young people, you do cut gun crime and you know, you do things differently. That's my hope actually for all of this, that we actually change politics and we change the country from the bottom up. But what I do know is I will be stronger and we will be stronger the more people invest positively into it. You know, and I can understand why tonight there's still scepticism. Is this worth it? And you know, Alex's contribution was saying, you know, give me time, and I appreciate that. But I would say the more people buy in and say, well, this is something that's worth giving a go, the stronger I feel it will become, and the more positive change for the better we will begin to make. So really, I just want to open the door to all of you, the invitation to help write this story, this future for Greater Manchester. You know, I think if anywhere can do it, we can do it. And if there's ever going to be a time to change things, then surely it's got to be now. Yes, we can. We need a bit of positivity around, don't we? There's a lot of negativity wherever we look. But, you know, we've seen what people here are all about. We know what they're all about. I will succeed if I unlock that, won't I? If I give the voices of people here that chance to kind of be heard more loudly on the national stage. And that for me is what devolution should be, should all be about, you know, changing politics from the bottom up. So we're making a start, and by being here tonight, you're helping us along that journey. But stick with it. Let's see what we can do. But I'm confident if we do work together, we can make Greater Manchester even greater. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you to you.
Thank you. Just